Thank you, Usha. If it's too loud, let me know. Or if it's not loud enough. I mean, seriously, because I don't have a sound person here, so just do let me know. First time I've had a dog in my audience, finally. But your face the wrong way. The show's here.
She'll sing along.
I'm Deborah Henson-Conant, or Deborah Henson-Conant, either way. And this is an electric harp. It weighs about 11 pounds. I'm just going to get this all out of the way. This is a strap. It's got 32 strings, and these levers change the pitches of the strings. And so you'll see me changing them. There's, I'll tell you more about it later on. So I do a lot of shows where I'm just playing music and I'm telling stories, but tonight I wanted to do something different, which is to talk about creativity in general, creativity in specific, because I've been doing a lot of thinking about creativity and my own creative process and what it takes to get from a creative impulse, any creative impulse, to the moment of creative expression. And I broke that down. I broke it down into 7 strings. Amazingly, on the harp there's 7 strings in each octave. And so I broke it down into 7 strings, or 7 principles that take you from impulse to the moment of liftoff. And so I want to share those with you tonight at the same time that I'm playing music and telling the stories that brought me to be able to break down or deconstruct my process in that way. And I want to have time afterwards for you to ask questions because I really love questions. So if you have questions while we're going, write them down, or if you absolutely have to ask them then. So the first string of passion. Before we ever learn to do anything, before we ever learn to play an instrument or to write or to sing or to dance, there is that impulse, that desire, the desire to touch, to feel it, to do, to be. And that is the beginning of any art or expression, is that moment of impulse. And we all have it, and we have it all the time, and it doesn't always lead to some kind of expression, and sometimes it leads to expression almost immediately, like when you're playing jazz, and sometimes it takes decades to finish something, to get it to the moment of connection and sharing. But still, it starts with that moment of impulse. had the impulse as a kid that I wanted to be a flamenco dancer. But I did not want to learn how to do any of the flamenco dancing. I didn't want to go through the discipline of learning how to do that. But I wanted to have that feeling. I wanted to experience that and to be able to express that in my own way. And so that was an impulse that led to this song. To find a way to actually be that. To be that thing in my own way. Many years ago, I was playing a game with my cousins. A game that's called Dictionary, where you take a dictionary and you try to find a word that you think nobody is going to know, and you make up a definition for it. And then you read the real definition. Everybody makes up a definition, and one person actually gets to say the right definition. And I was looking through in this dictionary, and I found the word noumenon. And the definition was a thing in itself, as separate from its physical existence. And I knew that that was a definition that nobody would think was real. And so I picked that. Everybody else came up with other definitions, and I said that the definition was a thing in itself, as separate from its physical existence. Nobody guessed it, but that became a word from my life. It was like I discovered this word that allowed me to take things apart and to be able to take that impulse of wanting to be a flamenco dancer and you do it at any moment, like here. Yes, very, very well done. Well done.
Take it back.
Is it too loud over here? Are you guys okay? So that's impulse, where it all starts, that impulse to want to be something, to want to do something, to want to touch something. And then the next string, and these aren't incremental, these are all happening at the same time, but the next string is the string of structure. And this string of structure, and I'm not talking about externally imposed structure, but I'm talking about the internal structure, like that every human has, the flexible skeleton that allows everyone to be different, but everyone to have the support of that one idea, and how many ways that one idea gets played out. And not just human beings, but I mean animals too, case in point. That we all have this skeleton and it all gets played out in so many different ways. So when I was about 7, my mother remarried, and she married a child psychologist. And I don't know if that's relevant to this story, but it's part of the story. And in our first year all living together, one day he sat me down at the kitchen table and he gave me a string and a pencil and a glass of water and a bowl of sugar. And he told me to, and a spoon, and he told me to take the spoon and put sugar into the glass of water and to stir it up, and to stir it as much as I could until the sugar disappeared. And then he asked me to put more in until the water was completely saturated with this sugar. And then he had me take the string and tie it onto the pencil and then put the string down into the water. And then we went to bed. And in the morning, we came out and the string was completely covered with sugar crystals. And I said, wow, how did that happen? And he said, well, sugar is always going to form crystals. But when the string is there, it will form on that string. And that's the first time I had the idea that there can be an idea that other ideas can connect on. That there are so many things that can be this string in the sugar water, the structure that allows other things to collect on it and differentiate and become what they would normally become, but they would normally be disparate. This allows them to connect. And so that's the second string. The first string is the string of impulse, and the second string is the string of structure. And structure is a huge, important part of music. Structure, creates a structure out of time. Otherwise, time is just going anywhere, doing anything. But when we make music, when we structure it, it creates music. And one of the really cool, one of the greatest structures is the blues. It's just a very simple musical structure, and it's actually 12 bars long. In fact, I'll sing it for you. sing and you're gonna sing back. So that's gonna be even an added structure. So if I go, let me go to a different key here. And I use these levers to change key. There's 7 strings, but you get to change them. So if I go, bo yabba dee ba, you go bo yabba dee ba, bo yabba dee ba, bo yabba dee ba, shoo bop shoo bam, shoo bop shoo bam, pickles and ham, honey and jam, itchy bitchy boo bop, itchy bitchy boo bop, bo yabba dee ba, bo yabba dee ba, bo yabba dee ba, bo yabba dee ba, shoo bop shoo bam, pickles and ham, honey and jam, itchy bitchy boo bop, itchy boo bop. Okay, excellent. Now, every time I sing, it's one measure, and every time you guys sing, it's one measure. So I would just like you to count the measures while I'm singing. By the way, this song is by a guy named Dave Polanski, who lives down in Natick. And it's just a really fun song. So, 1, 2, 1, 2, I start. Bo yabba dee ba, bo yabba dee ba, bo yabba dee ba, bo yabba dee ba, shoo bop shoo bam, pickles and ham, honey and jam, edgy boo bop, 12. Are you sure? Are you absolutely?
I got 11.
Okay, who else got 12?
Me.
Did anybody else get? Oh, you
It
weren't.
has to be an even number.
Okay, let's try it one more time. Yes, you can count on your fingers. 1. You got 11. Good. A 1, a 2. Everybody count, and it's bo yabba dee ba, bo yabba dee ba, bo yabba dee ba, bo yabba dee ba, shoo bop shoo bam, pickles and ham, honey and jam, itchy bitchy boo bop. How many?
12.
12, yes. And for this reason, this is called the 12-bar blues. And I thought it had to do with 12 bars in some town somewhere, but this is actually what this tune is about. And it is one of the simplest structures in the world. It really is just that structure over and over and over again with certain chords. And yet there is so much different things that you can do with it. And so I'm actually going to sing you a song that I did using the blues and using my own life. You may or may not, by the way, this may not be an exactly 12-bar blues, what I'm about to sing. But once you get a structure, is this too loud?
No.
All right.
Is it one of them?
That wasn't loud enough.
All right, it should be louder? No.
Yeah.
Actually, if you sit over here, it is louder.
Oh, okay.
It's this amp is here. Yeah, but yeah. Or you can just come front and sit with the dog too. So anyway,
Sit on the dog.
What?
Sit on the dog.
Yeah, you can sit
That's
on the
very
dog.
comfortable.
Not be too loud.
Yeah.
So the cool thing about structure, so that's a 12-bar form, but as soon as you have structure, you can start playing around with it, just like you can on a jungle gym. And so the 12-bar blues, I'm just going to sing a song, and then you can express yourself with it. So here's a structure. Here's the 12-bar blues, and my ex was a really great cook, and his ex was an even better cook. And so I didn't really cook that much in our house, but I was the sous chef. And I would cut stuff up and whatever. And one day I just started singing about that because that's what I was doing, and it went like this. I'll be your sous chef, baby. I'm gonna slice and dice and chop for you. I'll be your sous chef, baby. I'm gonna clean your counters when I'm through. I'm gonna scour your skillet, I'm gonna polish your pan. If you be my ever-loving red-hot man, I'll be your sous chef, baby. Let's start cooking something now. I'll be your sous chef, baby, and I'll preheat your oven every I'll be your sous chef, baby. I'm gonna mix your spices till they bite. I'm gonna peel your carrot. I'm gonna stir your sauce. But when we're in the kitchen, I let you be the boss. I'll be your sous chef, baby. Let's start cooking something now. Let's start cooking. Let's start cooking. Let's start cooking something now. I say turn up the heat, make it savory sweet. Just bring home the child. Then I'm gonna rice your potatoes. I'm gonna spice up your peas. I'm gonna dice your zucchini. I'm gonna slice your cheese. I'll be your sous chef, baby. Let's start cooking something now. Let's take a little slow cooking break here, so I can simmer in the sweet juices of your tender love. Don't you get saucy with me, young man. I'm gonna scour your skillet, polish your pan, do everything that a sous chef can. I'm gonna, come on, help me out here. I'm gonna what? Come on, you know you're thinking of stuff. I'm gonna what? I'm not gonna go off the
Rinse
story.
your salad.
I'm gonna rinse your salad. Even if your palate. Okay, what else? What?
Simmer your sauce.
I'm gonna simmer your sauce. What rhymes with that? Simmer your sauce, and then I'm gonna toss the salad. What else? I can see you guys. I'm gonna what? I'm gonna roll your dough. Don't you know? I'm gonna roll your dough. Don't you know? I'm gonna flip you over till you're thoroughly sauteed. Your chocolate is souffled. Your creme is brulee. I'll be your sous chef, baby. I'm gonna wear your apron till the day I die. I'll be your sous chef, baby. I'm gonna chop your onions, 'cause I never, ever want to see you cry. I'm gonna dress your salad. I'm gonna skim your fat. You just let me know, baby, what I can do after that. I'll be your sous chef, baby. Let's start cooking something now. I'll be your sous chef, baby. Let's start cooking something now. I'll be your sous chef, baby. Everybody, let's start cooking something now. Ooh yeah, soup's on, baby. Literally, when I was in the kitchen and I was chopping this stuff, I had the impulse to sing them because I knew the blues, I could. And so with impulse and structure, it just gives you so much more ability to express yourself. And then the third string is the string of character. Now, when I was a little kid, I started playing music on the piano. And I didn't take lessons. I did not like lessons. But I started playing even when I was like 3 or 4, and I played with it like it was a toy. And I played the same story over and over again. And the story was that there was a girl and she was playing outside and it started to rain, and so she went down into this very dark place. And down in the dark place, there was some kind of a rumbling, and there was a monster who chased her up, and then she came back out into the rain. And that was pretty much the story. That was the entire story. But I played it over and over and over again, and I played the music, even though I had no understanding of music. And then later on, I learned about cowboys, and I learned this. And Like that was the whole thing. That was the only thing I learned. But I could be a cowboy as much as I wanted, and I could add character to that. And I could be like, cut 'em up, pull 'em out, and I could add to that music. So I didn't need much. Okay, I didn't need much. I needed, an impulse to tell the story. I needed a structure, and the story itself was a structure. And then what I did, that was actually just character. There was no notes there. I mean, I was playing notes, but I didn't know what notes I was playing. I was playing the character of rain. I was playing the character of going down somewhere. I was playing the character of, thunder or lightning without actually knowing any notes. And then this character, if you look at music, if you look at written music, you'll see that there's notes, but there's all this other stuff. There's stuff like FFF or PP or lines and squiggles and all this kind of stuff like that. And that doesn't tell you what notes to play, but it tells you how to play it. So for example, if I said, if you see forte, it means loud. So everybody just say forte. Forte. But that's not really forte, is it?
Okay. Forte!
Yeah. Okay, so if you were going to do it forte, what would it sound like? Forte! And then what does, sorry about that. I'll turn the echo down a little bit like that. And then pianissimo, what does that sound like? So that's great. So that gives us dynamics. But what it doesn't do is tell you why it's forte or why it's pianissimo. So why would you, in your life, be forte? What are some of the reasons?
Angry.
You could be angry, you could be pissed off, yeah?
Passionate.
You could be passionate, right? You could be excited.
Calling my daughter in the second.
Exactly, you could be calling somebody. There could be a lot of other sound, a lot of other noise, and each of these are different kind of fortes. So if you're just playing the dynamics in music, you're not playing the meaning, you're not playing the character. And that same thing with pianissimo. What are reasons why you would be pianissimo?
Wait, am I sleeping?
Someone's sleeping. Oh yeah, so you want to be quiet. What else?
Cautious.
Cautious, okay.
Thoughtful.
Thoughtful. Secretive, yeah. So just out of curiosity, what would it sound like if you were saying, if someone was sleeping and you were saying pianissimo? What would that sound like? And what would it sound like if you were being secretive and it was pianissimo? It's like, it's different. All of it's pianissimo, but it's different. And that's character. And if you have that impulse and you have a structure and you have character, you have music and you can tell a story and you can express yourself with it. But that's only 3. I mean, but what's beautiful to know is that you can express yourself just with these 3 things, even if you know nothing about music. And probably in other ways as well. I would imagine that with drawing, there is the impulse to draw. You might be drawing the structure, a face or something like that. And then what really you love, I think, is the character that comes out, right? And that comes in how the lines are, how the arc of the line or the depth of the line, but you're not thinking arc of line or depth of line. You're thinking, how can I express this character that I'm experiencing? Right? Yeah. So those are the first 3 strings. Oh, I call them the strings of passion. And they're also the first 3 strings. There's 3 strings on the harp. Oh, there's 7 strings. So then the 4th string, I call the string of rolls. And there's one other thing I want to say about character, because there's an idea that straddles both roles and character, and that's the idea of archetypes. That archetypes, if you hold an archetype, you can, when Shakespeare said, if you have not, what did he say? And Shakespeare, by the way, may have been a woman, but that's for another time. Anyway, so what Shakespeare said, if you have not a quality, what's that quote? Somebody must know that. But you are all erudite people.
Yes, but we don't know enough about what you're trying
Oh,
to get
okay.
to.
So if you don't actually have a personality trait, just pretend that you do. But in Shakespeare language. Take it on if you have it not. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So when you have an archetype, like if you were just to imagine that you were the princess, the goddess Diana, even if I just imagine that I'm the goddess Diana, I'm just totally different. I mean, my body is different, and I think of my heart differently. If I imagine that I am the goddess Diana, I'm going to think that this is clearly a bow, you know, a bow and arrow, because that's what she had. So not only is my body different and the way I am in the world, but everything I engage with is different. And so that's just something that I learned as I started to go on stage. When I didn't know how to go on stage, I went on stage as someone else. As my mother, actually. She was a great performer, by the way. And the fourth string is the string of roles. And we just did that. We just did when we did Bo Yabba Diva, we were doing fellowship and leadership. I mean, you were following, I was leading. And but leadership is nothing without fellowship. And people don't really talk about fellowship that much. But if you think about even a leader themselves, they are following their inner vision. They can't just lead. You can't lead if you're not following something. And so these roles become very powerful. And in an orchestra, you're following the conductor. But in a jazz band, you're following the drummer. You're following with your ears, or you're following with your eyes. But then it gets even more interesting when you start thinking about improvisation. Because like a sports team, have you ever watched people play jazz? And they just kind of shift roles. Someone's taking the solo and you don't know, and then someone's doing something else, and then someone's doing something else, and it kind of goes along. There's a structure there. And they're changing roles. They're changing roles from playing accompaniment to playing bass to playing a melody. And so I would like to do that as well, just to kind of show you that. And one of the things that's amazing about it, if you think about a sports team, a baseball team could go anywhere in the world and play, right? Because they know their roles. Any person could just play their role and play in a baseball team, right? Is that not true? Or a soccer team? Am I right? Yeah, you can get traded because you know your role. And you can do the same thing in a jazz band. So in music, there's 3 roles. And the rules are bass, accompaniment, and melody. And so bass, let me see if I can just create a bass line here. The machine. One more time. So that's a bass line. It's down here. You can actually see on the harp that it's broken into bass and accompaniment, and melody is up here. But you can imagine that if that was 3 people playing together, each of them could play their roles. And even just like now, when I'm singing a melody and I'm playing accompaniment and I have a bass, I have those 3, and that makes music. And that makes it possible for more than one person to play together. And so we have impulse, and we have structure, and we have character, and we have roles, and that allows us to just like play. And then it comes to practice. Oh. But you can either think about practicing to get something right, or you can think about having a practice that allows what you're doing to get to you. That's what you do with yoga, and that's what you can do when you're playing music. You can work at it, try to control it, but you can also just play it and play it. And one of the examples of this is actually a tune that I bet you all know. And so I'm going to play that now. Anybody know what I'm playing already? Let's take 5. And one of the reasons you know that is it's got a very famous accompaniment pattern and bass line. But one of the things that's amazing about this tune is that it's got this melody. The structure of the tune is this melody that you all know. And then it has this open section where anything can happen. In fact, nothing is structured there except this rhythm. And I'll try to tell you what's happening in the tune as I play it. And what I'm going to be doing is combining the idea of impulse and structure and character and roles, and then the idea of what happens when you do something very simple so that it gets to you instead of you trying to get it right. Because when I get to the middle section of this, I have no idea what I'm going to do. And I'm going to try to let myself feel trusting enough to just see where the music takes me. So first we start with a melody that you all know. It goes like this. And that's the melody. That's the end of the melody. And now I go into this, what's called a blowing section. And it's called a blowing section because normally it's people who blow on things who play it. And I'm serious. I'm talking about horn players, trumpet players, trombone players. Not harp players who do not blow on their instrument, but I could. Any difference. And this is just open, just the man of the melody. I was just about to say that, but that's wrong. It's just this thing that goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You may have noticed if your eyes are open that I just closed mine. And I did this because that helps me feel like I'm alone. And when I'm alone, I can feel more. So I'm gonna turn my voice down. If you guys could keep talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 while I do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I'm here, now I feel that I can have more. But I'm still nervous, is it too loud? Okay. That case. Okay. Thank you. That was perfect. I feel better. I'm not alone. Yes, I'm not alone. Yeah, and yet I am connected with this instrument like it was a prosthetic. And I'm serious, it is like that. It's like the voice I never had when I was born. Like I was born without something that I could do with my hands. And then I got this thing that I could do with my hands. And it gave me a voice with my whole body. But in fact, I'm feeling a little bit insecure right now. And I wish that I could move a little more and feel this whole instrument in my arms, in my grasp, in if I could only feel this vibration inside me that I feel when I play it, when I have this in my hands that was missing when I was born. A tool, a machine, an extension, a way for my hands to speak, for my hands to speak, for my hands to speak to me. To me, speak to me, speak to That's the strings of impulse, Structure, character, roles, practice and practices. And then there's deconstruction. And you actually just heard me deconstruct. I deconstructed what I was doing. And when we deconstruct, it allows us to then create something new. Like just deconstructing Take 5 and saying, telling you what's happening in the middle and telling you that that's an open section, it allows me to be open rather than to play exactly what Dave Brubeck played. So when we can reconstruct something, deconstruct it, it gives us freedom. It's like we're distilling it. It's like we're coming down and finding the seed of it. And then the very final string, which you also just heard, is the string of liftoff. That moment when we take all those other strings, the impulse, the structure, the character, the roles, the practice that we've done, the practices that we have, the deconstruction, and we just let whatever happens to us, happen to us. And one of the things that I truly believe is that when people can learn to connect with an art form that they can create and they can express and they can share a peak experience at any technical level. If they can actually connect to that technical level and not be trying to do something more than they're doing, which is one of the hardest things in the world, is to actually do what you're doing. And that's what happens when we have liftoff. And before I play the last tune here, I want to say the question I asked myself was why? Okay, we've got these 7 strings, and we've got this experience of music. And why? And what happens? And one of the things I noticed as I started breaking this down is I started realizing that everything that I am comes out through my music. Or whatever I'm doing, whether it's drawing or music, it comes out through the creative expression. And everything that I do in my life comes back in to what I'm doing with my instrument. So it goes in, and when I play, it goes inside. The vibration literally comes inside of me, and then what I'm doing comes into my playing. And I began to realize there was this, not just resonance in the instrument, but it was almost like there's this instrument inside of me. If you could imagine a mirror image starting here and into me, that image of that instrument has grown into me. And when I can actually play who I am, and I can play at my level, and I can play what is in my heart, then not only the instrument is resonating, but I'm resonating. And it creates that sense of infinity. And why? Because it takes us out of isolation and into connection with ourselves and with what we're doing, whether it's an instrument, whether it's a pen, whether it's our feet, and then also with other human beings. It creates that connection. So this last piece is called Quixota. You've all heard of Don Quixote, but this is Quixota. This is her story. And for me, it brings everything together because it is an impulse that I want to be Don Quixote, but myself. And being Quixota off on my own adventure allows me to do that. And there's a structure that you'll see, and there's this looper that allows me to create a structure. And there's the character of the person that I'm imagining. And there's the roles as I'm playing, as you'll hear me put in music into this looper. And then there is the practice of just having done this so many times, and the deconstruction into the story, and taking the adventure of Quixote and putting it into mine. And then the liftoff of actually just being able to play this. for inviting me here. I mean, what an incredible opportunity to get to be this close, to get to see all of you.
Beautiful.
Just so exciting. And I want to answer any questions that you have, because I love questions. I also want to say I have a show at the Center for Arts in Natick. Do you guys, anybody know where that is? TCAM?
Yeah.
In Natick? Yes.
When is that?
Yes, I think it's February 4th. It's in the beginning of February. Oh, where in Natick? It's the Center for Arts in Natick. TCAM, I don't know, it's downtown Natick. Natick isn't that big. It's in an old firehouse. And I also wanted to just invite everybody, I don't know if you guys have phones, but to just like take a picture tonight and share it with me. Yeah, go ahead and take one. Yeah, just now, and even tweet it. And yeah, or
Put it
whatever.
on Facebook.
Or whatever your social media of choice is. So just like, and actually you can do, okay, I'm playing. It's like, I'll take any pose you want. Yeah, I should have said that earlier. And then I invite you to, and you can take it during this last song. And I invite you to, to follow me on social media. My website is hipharp.com. That's hip as in cool, and harp as in the instrument, not hipharp, H-I-P-H-A-R-P, not hipharp. I knew there was something else that I wanted to tell you, but I know what it is. So first of all, yeah, so let me just play this last song, and then
That one.
and then I'll see if you have any questions, and I'm happy to talk about anything, and I'm happy to show you the equipment. I think you saw the loop, the loop right?
Yes, that was great.
Yeah, I'll show you. I'm not going to loop in this song, but I'll be happy to loop later on. You guys can come up, you can play with the harp, and you can see it weighs 11 pounds. I don't know how many of you guys saw my TEDx talk?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And that tells the story of how this harp came about. And it's also a story of deconstruction, in the sense that I played a big concert harp. I had really a lot of trouble touring with it because I couldn't get it where I needed it to go. And I had to say to myself, well, what is a harp? Like, what actually is it? Is it that big instrument, or is it a frame with strings? And if it's a frame with strings, you can make any kind of a harp. And then I worked with a company. I created a partnership with a company in order to be able to have this created. And that, yeah. And now people all around the world play it, and it is called the DHC. After me. Deborah Henson-Conant, DHC.
There's a great TED talk that she gave, and I actually included it in my newsletter, in my invitation to the artist salon. So if you haven't watched it yet, go back and click on the link and watch. Tell the story about this. It's
a story of persistence beyond what should ever have happened. But and tell your friends, yeah, and then share it with friends as well, please. Is the dog going out? So I grew up, as many of you also did, with a mother. Not everybody does, but. And my mother was very, she was both amazing and magical and also impossible. But one of the things that was really beautiful about her was her voice. And after she died, I was thinking, and she died very young, she died in her early 50s. I was thinking about her life, and I was thinking that she had always felt bad that she wasn't discovered. And I felt bad that she wasn't discovered, that more people hadn't heard her. And then one day I was walking down the bike path and I thought, well, wait a minute. I discovered her, and she changed my life, and is it not enough to just change one person's life? And how might the ripple of that go out into the world? And so this is a song about the memory of her voice. We'll sing for the nightingale when the night is gone, when the daylight comes. We'll sing took me to my rest. But who will sing for the nightingale? Her own sweet song is silent now. Who will sing for the nightingale when she sleeps alone in the sun? When she sleeps alone in the sun. Happy to answer anything. And one of the biggest questions that I have when I thought about this night is like, what is this? What is this thing that has ideas and music and so if you have any idea how to describe it, what it is. Yes.
I just had a remark, a question that when you're talking about resonance,
Yes.
so it goes from your instrument to inside of you, and then have you thought of the fact that the pureness or the resonance between that, how it's an infinity that includes us and we resonate.
Right, yes.
So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Yes, I've thought about that the work that I do on myself is to make it clearer, so make myself clearer so that I can be that resonance. And in some ways get out of the way of it so that it can then, and then it brings other people in as well. Yes, yes, right, it just keeps going. Thank you, yes.
So you keep talking about 7 strings,
Yeah.
but it looks like a lot more than 7.
Yeah, well, you need glasses. Thank you, well, thank you for saying that.
Excellent point.
Here's the deal. So there's 7 strings in each octave. And I should have made that.
Octave.
Means, even though octave means 8, that's right. This, by the way, is my cousin Nancy.
So I can quiz.
And this is, actually, no, you can't. This visit you can't. But, so this is my cousin Nancy and my cousin-in-law, Guido. And I'll answer that in just a question in a minute, but I was just curious. I had never talked about a noumenon in this show before. Was that interesting?
That was amazing.
Yeah, well, sorry. Okay, no. So that was, I don't know if you remember that, where we were playing dictionary when that happened.
I remember.
Well, it was
playing
profound for
dictionary,
me.
but I don't remember that word.
Yeah, and I had never thought about that, but you know, when I looked out at you, I was like, right, that's when it happened, in the middle of that game. So anyway, going back to so there's 7 notes in an octave. Let's see what key this is in. Oh, they're like all the white keys of the piano. So.
I get it now.
But I think that's a really important thing for me to actually bring out and say, because you're right, I'm saying there's 7 notes. And one of the things that's so beautiful about the harp is how open it is, so it's always resonating with itself in that, and resonating down here, and then here, and then here, and then here. And one of the reasons that I fell in love with the harp was, first of all, I could get my hands right in on it, and it also was a machine as well as an instrument, and that there's this symmetry. Like if that may look obvious, but if you try to do that on the piano, you've got an opposite symmetry, but there's an absolute symmetry on the harp because your hands are in a mirror image to each other. Yes?
Can you talk a little bit about the resonance or the connection between your voice, the vocal cords, the way that you project and connect with this appendage that you didn't have when you were born?
You know, yeah, this whole thing about voice is so interesting to me. Because lately I've been I've been curious about what is my voice as a human without music. And I've actually been doing a series of videos to kind of explore that. But for years I asked myself, why am I playing the harp? Because especially when I played the big concert harp, I was like, I don't like it. I don't like harp music. I don't like having to carry it around. I don't think it's beautiful. It's delicate. It could get smashed. The insurance is amazing. You know, we have to pay for it. But what I finally realized is that this instrument supports the human voice and gives space and resonance to it in a way that that no other instrument does. And I didn't sing when I first started playing the harp. I mean, I sang all the time as a kid, but I felt like I should be a harpist, you know, and learn how to play harp. But singing is part of my voice, and that's actually something I didn't bring out. I often talk about that practice is all about you have to be bad to be good. And I went through a whole period where I realized that singing was a part of my voice. And I started singing, and people kept, a part of my voice as an artist. It hadn't been part of me playing the harp, and as I started singing, people came up and said, "You have to stop singing. It's going to ruin your career. It sounds terrible. You're bad." And but because of a story I didn't tell you, but I'll tell you next time. I realized I had to keep doing it because it was my voice, and that was the only voice that I could share. And then my life has been this journey, and I always feel like I'm just starting this journey, because now I know how to start doing this, of finding that voice and then sharing it. Am I answering your question?
Perfectly.
Oh, good. What did you think about it? I mean, what was your thought about yourself and when you heard that?
I wanted to close my eyes too and disappear and go into the sound, because the sound does something inside you. It's like listening to the music that resonates in your own mind, that takes your body somewhere where it wouldn't normally go. It doesn't go there at a stoplight. It doesn't go there perhaps maybe while you're cooking, I would imagine.
Right, well, you're singing while you're cooking.
But so it was somewhat magical.
Well, thank you, and you're making me think two other things. Let's see, so you said, then I got out with the stoplight.
Closing his eyes.
Closing our eyes. So I love to dance, and I'm dating again, or trying to date again, so I'm going out to all these dances, by the way. I'm available for being set up, I'm just telling you that. This is just letting everybody know. And I love to dance, and I went to this swing dance, a social dance, and I saw this guy dancing, and he was dancing so erratically, I just couldn't, I was like, oh my God, I hope he doesn't ask me to dance. Because I just didn't know how I would follow him. But he did ask me to dance, and I said to him, I'm sorry, I hope you don't mind, but I'm just going to close my eyes while we dance, because I didn't say because it's the only way I'm going to be able to follow you. But that allowed me to totally connect with what he was doing, whatever it was. And it was funny because he actually emailed me a few days later. I'd never met him before, as I know, and said, wow, it was so amazing to have this woman come up and exhibit such trust. And that wasn't at all what it was. but that's how it felt to him. So that was one thing, and then there was something else. There was something else. What else did you say? You said something. When I was a kid, when I was like 10, and I first fell in love with music that I hadn't made myself, it was Debussy's La Mer. And I heard it, it was a Debussy piece, and I heard it on the stereo, and I literally tried to crawl into the stereo. It was one of those stereos that was up a little bit, and my parents came home, and I was there like sobbing underneath the stereo. And it was because of that, I think, that I wanted to work as a symphony soloist and write music and literally get inside the symphony. So the only way, that I really enjoy, Guido plays with the symphony, the only way I really enjoy a symphony is if I'm on stage with the symphony playing, because I can be inside the music, and that is how close I want to be. So thank you for bringing those two things up.
You're welcome.
Anything? Yeah, yes.
Go ahead.
Well, I think there's also a relationship between what you described about music and what I see in my own work as a visual artist, as a photographer, that there's a resonance with what I'm seeing, and my eyes aren't closed, but the very best work and the special moments are this sense of resonance between the interior, between one's interior and what one's seeing. And
Oh, so I see.
it,
So when
it creates a
yeah.
very focused, very intense experience of seeing where you become one with what you're seeing.
And then I'm assuming those photographs are
And then
really
you capture it
vibrant,
in a
right,
photograph.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
Or I
what
would say an artist with, a
Right.
painter. I don't know if Norman is here, but Norman LaLiberte, but this sense of, I don't, you said close your eye because your medium
Right.
is sound, but I
Right.
think a visual artist, I think what you're talking about is also relevant for visual artists.
Yeah, and what do you feel like in that moment when that happens? When you know that you've seen
Almost out of body.
Yeah, and by the way, I do sometimes open my eyes, and I when I have even more courage, I actually look at people. It's something I love to do. It's scary, but it's beautiful. I've been thinking about that lately because I've been thinking that, I mean, I made for my students, I have an online school, and this is, I teach a class in Strings of Passion, and I made them what I call a creativity gym. And I made them these soundscapes so that they could just play and not worry about what they were playing. And I realized that the reason I made it is so that they could listen to themselves while they're playing, but like really listen to what was happening. And it sounds like that's what when you described what you're doing, it's like you somehow almost created the vibrance, or you said that you
Well, it's a
that
response.
resonates.
It's a response to
Right.
what you're seeing. what I'm
Right,
seeing.
and then you can capture that, and then you can share it. Yeah, thank you. That's really beautiful. Yeah.
I have a technical question. I'm watching you change the keys up there on the top of the harp, and I'm used to the concept of a capo on a guitar.
Right.
When you change or the concert harp, the pedals, you change,
Yeah,
the whole instrument at once.
yeah.
And you're just doing an individual string at a time.
Yeah, and that was tough for me because I loved the concert harp. I loved the machinery of it. I just loved that you used your feet to like change the harmony. It was just, and there was like all these thousands of gears and stuff. I love that. These are, someone has, other guitarists and banjo players have come up and said like, hey, those are like Scruggs pins. And I'm like, okay. So it just does one. But that threw me for a long time. And I've actually written tunes where the harp is in 3 different keys. That's something you can do with this because I'm just doing them one at a time. I'll put one key down here, one key up, and that's really interesting. But the other thing that I love about them is that once I got comfortable with them, I realized then I could play with them and not just shift them, but
Yeah, I heard you do that. Yeah.
I could do all kinds of stuff, so that's character. It took me a while. First, I was just technically getting them, but this is another thing.
So you're changing each string upper half step or down half step?
If I have to change,
Yeah.
if I have to modulate,
Mhm.
and that's one of the reasons I love playing my own music because then I can control how much I have to shift it. Rather, if I try to play, blue bossa or some jazz tune that I could play on the harp, it'd be really hard to play on this instrument.
Mhm.
But this is another thing that I really loved about my genesis, or if that's the right word, with this instrument, because I had been a professional, made records with the concert harp, and then I realized as I started touring as a concert harpist, that was not going to work. My harp would get stuck in Pori, Finland for 2 weeks. It cost more to send the harp somewhere than to send me. And I looked at it and I was like, I want a career, and I don't want to have to spend my career
FedEx.
getting this thing around. And so I envisioned, this is just a Celtic harp, but it's a Celtic harp that's like electric. It's like if a harp married an electric guitar. That's what this is. And so there was this huge learning curve when I first got it, and it's one of the reasons why you can see I put very vibrant colors on these, because I couldn't see where they were. They didn't make any sense to me. Is that
Yeah.
is that interesting? I don't.
Yeah.
So you invented this?
No, well, I didn't. Okay, it's said that I invented, but when I was a kid, I had a book of Egyptian concubines. Wasn't that? It was old Egyptians, and the centerfold was a bunch of women walking and wearing harps. And so, when I started playing the concert harp, and I saw a picture of King David playing the harp, and I was like, why can't I do that?
Yeah.
And so it's hard to think that I invented it, but I think what happened is, and I know other people had made electric harps, I popularized it, and I partnered with the most visionary harp company in the world. And because of that partnership, and if you see the TED Talk, it did not happen fast. Like I was like, this is the harp of the future. As soon as we make it, everyone's gonna play. Come on, everybody! And like nobody did it. And then you'll hear in the TED Talk what happened until finally, literally like 15 years afterwards, when they were about to, just like give it all up and the harp was, anyway. And then I had this, I said to them, you're in France, look at the harp. Look at the body of the harp. It looks like a bicycle. So go to the bicycle builders and see if they can help you make a lightweight, strong. Doesn't it look like a bicycle to you? Yeah, it's like a framework. So they went to the bicycle builders. They were able to shave, the harp that I had before, this was 25 pounds, 30 strings. This is 11 pounds and 32 strings. And all because of that one moment when I said, go to the bike builders. And they did it.
How many people are there out there that do this also?
Well, they don't,
Or even have this?
they have these more and more and more. I mean, there's a waiting list of like 6 months for these, but now there's more and more people who play this harp, which makes me very jealous, by the way. Like, I mean, I don't make any money off of it, but I was given, these harps to play. So the harp is coming into its own now, more and more people. And I have an online school where I teach adults, not beginners, but I teach them how to use the harp as a platform for what they want to do. Like I have people who are sign language interpreters using the harp. I know that sounds crazy, but, and people who combine dance and harp. I love helping people combine things. So there's more and more. I don't want to bore you, but.
I should say, it's funny because even when you play jazz, it's to me that is an ethereal instrument, and it takes my breath away. Sometimes you just strum it, and I go, it takes my breath away.
Oh, you may want to play the harp. Yeah. Well, it's amazing, but it really is a phenomenal instrument, and more and more people are playing it as adults because you can express yourself with it.
It's just beautiful.
Thank you.
But to respond to that, or to add something to that, I, as a violinist, remember a famous story. A member of the audience went backstage to see Jascha Heifetz, one of the world's greatest violinists, and a woman said to him, "Mr. Heifetz, your instrument is the greatest instrument I've ever heard. Tell me more about your instrument." He went over to his violin, to listen to the violin, and says, "I don't hear anything." So I just wanted to say that reaction that you get, I get the same reaction, but it's not because of the instrument. It's because of what Deborah does.
Oh, absolutely.
Deborah, you are.
I want to say one thing about that. That one of the things that I say to my students and that I notice is that the instrument is silent until we touch it, and yet it gives us voice as we give it voice.
Deborah, you are the greatest creator that I have ever met.
Bravo.
That is the true bottom line.
I wholeheartedly agree.
What?
How did we find you?
You found me through Uta. So I met Uta at an event where
At an audition.
and an audition,
Yeah.
and we just met each other, and we were just like, we have to be friends. I also write musical theater. That's one of my biggest passions is writing musical theater and writing art song. And so Uta and I have been talking and trying to find the project to work on together.
So last weekend I did a cabaret show, a climate cabaret. I sang
That
two
Judith
songs of hers.
created.
Judith Black, stand up.
Please stand up.
Storyteller and climate activist. She initiated this whole evening with many, many artists in Gloucester. I sang 2 of her songs, and today we said our next project, and we're gonna have a fundraiser, guys.
Yes.
So be prepared. It's gonna be Ute sings Deborah Henson-Conant. That's
Yeah.
gonna be, and we're gonna make a CD. It's gonna be a CD. So come again to the fundraiser and bring your pocketbook then.
Yeah. So Guido, thank you. I mean,
Yes,
it's wonderful
it's so
to hear
true.
that coming from an amazing musician, and even more from someone in my family. Thanks. Yes, Judith.
You are hands down one of the hardest working artists I know, and you give it away when you're working. How do you keep energy in between? How do you own that instead of giving it all away?
Well, I feel like I get energy when I'm playing. I really feel like I got so much energy from this night. It was so powerful. And but in between is when I wish I did. I mean, I do a lot of stuff online. I have a lot of buddies and partners. My whole week is seeing other people, other creatives, and talking to them and having action meetings. That's what my week is like. And years ago, when I first performed in a jazz club, I couldn't make it through the night. I didn't have energy to make it through the night, and that's when I started running. I thought I need to run so that I can keep my energy up, and I started running then. And I'm no better today. It's maybe worse, but it really actually keeps. And I also love running because I'm not good at it. And I think it's really great for everybody to do something at least once a week, maybe once a day, that you're just not good at, and you're not going to get any better at it, but you love to do it. So I would love to talk more to all of you, and I'm going to put the harp up here so you guys can see it, and you can even put on the harness maybe. And I think, can we still have dessert, or is dessert like?
Sure, no,
Yeah.
please, go.
And,
Talk to each
thank
other.
you.